Winslet on the set of Titanic, and she was shooting down in Mexico, just over the border here, isn't it? And Kate had invited us down on the set to have a look around, and so Fran and I went down to visit her, and she showed us around the ship and the sets, and I was hoping I was going to get to meet you and she'd introduce us, but you were nowhere to be seen, and I never met you.
Might have been one of the days I quit.
Right. And then we got together when because we were thinking about shooting King Kong in 3D at one stage, very early in pre-production, and
it was after the Oscars.
Right.
And then I was hoping to get to meet him. It was literally the day after the Oscars when you guys won, every Academy Award. And I talked to you the day before, and he said, I can meet you at your office at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And I said, you're not going to be up at 9 o'clock, because you're still going to be up at 6 o'clock celebrating, because you're going to win every Oscar there is. And he said, he sort of, huffed humbly about that. And I said, no man, why don't we plan on meeting about 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, because that's when you're going to wake up.
Yes.
Okay, so when did we get to some actual FaceTime conversations? When did you start bonding? Have you bonded yet?
No, we can't stand each other. I don't know how this came about.
No, I've got a restraining order. He's as close to me as he's allowed to get. One more inch and he gets dragged away by the security guys when you get back.
But Gollum was something you were impressed by, no, Mr. Cameron?
Yeah, I think that, I was in here yesterday and I told everybody kind of what the moment was when I thought it might be actually possible to make Avatar. And it was watching the second Rings film, and the soliloquy where Gollum sort of talks to himself really proved that humanoid CG had reached an art, or you had pushed it to a level where
that scene was directed by Fran. I didn't direct that.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been talking to the wrong person.
Scene, though. It's a terrific scene. It's my favorite scene in the movie, and I didn't do it. But
and it would have been largely written by Fran too, right?
Yeah, it was. We shot that scene because we realized that we hadn't really adequately explained Gollum's schizophrenic sort of personality. So Fran quickly wrote the scene, and I didn't have time to direct it because the schedule was jam-packed. So we got a little unit together, and she spent a day and shot that scene with just with Andy Serkis by himself.
You don't have to admit this because your wife can't testify against you. Anyway, I think we kind of came together over the 3D thing with our shared passion for 3D, and I quickly realized in the first, sort of half hour of talking to Peter that he was, a wicked smart dude that had a very, very rapid kind of curve of getting it, and looking at the technology that we'd been building and looking at the result of it on, in digital projection, he sort of immediately started to spin, how he could and would use it. And I was pretty excited about the idea that he was going to, shoot King Kong in 3D.
I want to make sure I remember to ask, you guys are both looked at dimensionalizing Titanic, Lord of the Rings too. Where are we at, and do we have any hope?
We're going to dimensionalize Titanic.
Okay.
It's taken. Yeah.
Is DiCaprio going to be?
Actually, we can't call it dimensionalization. We have to call it conversion.
Okay.
That's the same thing. We're going to turn it into high-quality 3D.
What kind of timetable are we talking about?
It takes about a year to 18 months to do it, depending on the complexity. We've been told somewhere, around a year, maybe 14 months.
Okay. So you've tested it, so you've seen what's it like to look at?
I've seen a couple of minutes, converted. It looks spectacular. But it really requires the filmmaker to be involved to make sure that the stereospace decisions are made correctly.
And Peter, you have some movies that would probably look pretty good in 3D.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Dead Alive, yeah.
We'd love to convert Dead Alive. That'd be cool. Yeah. We'd love to do Lord of the Rings, obviously, but I just keep trying to suggest it to Warner Brothers, who now control those films, and I think they feel that there's not enough 3D cinemas. But of course, I say, well, there will be in 2 years when the thing's finished. So why don't we just get started on it? Because we've got 3 movies to have to do, 3-3-hour movies, and it's going to take a long time. But I don't know, everyone's just a little conservative at the moment.
There'll be a lot more 3D screens when they know that the Lord of the Rings films are going to be available in 3D.
Wow.
The other thing is people have to look at it as a 3D ecosystem. If the Lord of the Rings films and Titanic are available in 3D, that sends a signal all the way to the consumer electronics manufacturers to make the screens, make the modified Blu-ray DVD players so you can have it in your home. And so then when studios start to think, oh, well, I don't have to worry just about the theatrical revenue for the conversion, I can think about the home revenue as well, that the whole ecosystem has to be taken into consideration. And you've also got to think about, when you announce these projects, the impact on the number of screens and the devices that are built. It's a self-propelling loop, and you know, fortune favors the bold. So Warner Brothers need to like show a pair of balls.
3D on a
yes, love the
3D on a 50-inch plasma. You probably have to have something like a 50-inch screen to really, and obviously anything bigger than that is great too. But it looks, I mean, 3D looks terrific on a 50-inch plasma. It looks really great.
Yeah,
really
fantastic.
Great.
I'm
And
curious.
the consumer electronics companies are trying to push their large screens. And if 3D kind of drives you toward that, and if 3D requires a Blu-ray player because you've got to essentially put 2 movies on the disc simultaneously, so you need the storage density, then doesn't that fall right in line with their strategy,
Right.
their long-term strategy?
I'm curious, you guys have done so many projects that seemed impossible, and you always, or very often, have had people saying this isn't possible and sniping at it. Titanic would be the biggest flop in history. Lord of the Rings is unfilmable. You can't make 3 movies at once. Do you now you're dealing with the issue that there's not enough 3D cinemas. Do you get sick of this? Can you tune out that kind of BS, or does
Yeah,
it
you know,
energize you?
it's just all too hard. I think we should just stop.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson's like, oh, this guy's tough.
But you'd think, I mean, I would think that your track record would suggest you could be bet on, and it would turn out okay.
In my case, I couldn't have gotten Avatar made if I hadn't made Titanic,
Right,
you know, and the films that went before that. So track record does count for something.
right.
But if you're constantly going right out to the very end of the limb and trying to coax the studio out to the end of the limb with you, yeah, you're going to get some pushback from that.
Have you ever had moments in the middle of filming where you turned to Fran or John Lando, whomever, and said, you know what, this can't be done, and wanted to take a nap and go home?
I want to hear his answer. Because I've never turned to Fran.
I'm glad to hear it. Not really, because I think that, no, because I mean, part of the fun of filmmaking, because ultimately it's fun, and the fun is problem solving. I mean, you know, it's a puzzle, and the challenge of making a film is to not, you know, I don't want to say do the impossible because that kind of sounds a bit egotistical, but you know, if something's difficult and you immediately think, gosh, how are we going to do that? Then the fun of, the reason why you're doing it is solving that problem and figuring out a way to put it on the screen, and that's why it's such a fun being a filmmaker.